The afternoon Jess Kavanaugh brought me to an open house and told the realtor, "My boyfriend and I love it." I was standing 3 feet away holding a brochure about countertop finishes. She did not look at me when she said it. She did not flinch. She said it the way people say things they have practiced so many times in their own head that the lie comes out sounding like a memory. And the worst part, the part that kept me awake for 3 straight nights afterward, was that I didn't correct her. Let me explain. My name is Owen Gallagher. I'm 36. I manage freight routing for a mid-sized shipping company based outside Charlotte. The kind of job where I spend 9 hours a day making sure pallets of industrial adhesive get from point A to point B without ending up at point C. It is exactly as glamorous as it sounds. I live alone in a 2-bedroom apartment where the second bedroom is technically an office, but is actually a graveyard for half-read paperbacks and a stationary bike I use as a coat rack. I have friends. I go out. I'm not a recluse. But if you asked me on any given Friday night whether I'd rather be at a bar or on my couch watching something I've already seen, the couch wins every time. I was not looking for love. I was barely looking for better furniture. Her name was Jess Kavanaugh. We met 7 years ago at a mutual friend's housewarming party where someone had made sangria strong enough to dissolve enamel, and Jess had walked up to me, pointed at the bowl, and said, "That will kill you." I've had 4 glasses. I'm basically a medical warning. She was 30 at the time, maybe 31. She worked as a pediatric occupational therapist, the kind of person who spent her days teaching 4-year-olds how to hold a crayon, and came home with glitter in her hair and paint on her elbows, and never seemed to notice either. She had auburn hair that she wore in a knot on top of her head held together by whatever was nearby. A pen. A chopstick. Once a small screwdriver she'd forgotten was there until it fell into her soup at dinner. She had freckles across the bridge of her nose that she hated, and I had memorized, without meaning to. And she carried a chipped ceramic mug everywhere, white, with a faded drawing of a cat wearing a top hat that she claimed was vintage, and I claimed was something you refuse to throw away because you have an emotional attachment to kitchenware. That mug came to my apartment, to her office, to brunch, to a funeral once, which she said was disrespectful, and I said was consistent. She was my best friend, had been for 7 years. The kind of best friend who had a key to my apartment and used it without warning, who knew my coffee order and my blood type and which specific silence meant I was fine and which one meant I was not. She called me at midnight when she couldn't sleep. I called her at 6 a.m. when I went running and needed someone to complain to. We had seen each other through 2 of her breakups and 1 of mine, a job loss, a family funeral, and the time I got food poisoning in Asheville and she drove 2 hours to bring me Gatorade and crackers and sat on my hotel bathroom floor reading me headlines from her phone until I stopped wanting to die. She was the first person I told anything to, the last person I talked to most nights, and the one person I had successfully convinced myself I did not have feelings for. Through a combination of willpower, denial, and what I can only describe as aggressive emotional compartmentalization. I was very good at it. I had been doing it for roughly 6.5 years. So, the open house. It was a Saturday in early October. The air smelled like damp leaves in someone's fireplace 3 streets over, and the light had that golden, low-angled quality that makes every neighborhood look like it belongs in a film about people whose lives are more put together than yours. Jess had been talking about buying a house for months. She was tired of renting, tired of landlords who took 6 weeks to fix a faucet, tired of living in a place that didn't feel like hers. She'd been bringing me to open houses since August, every weekend. I went because she asked, and because I had poor decision-making skills when Jess Kavanaugh asked me for anything. This one was a craftsman bungalow on a tree-lined street. 3 bedrooms. Original hardwood floors. A kitchen with a window above the sink that looked out onto a backyard with a Japanese maple turning red. Jess walked in and went quiet. That was the tell. Jess Kavanaugh was never quiet. She narrated everything, her thoughts, her lunch, her opinion on the structural integrity of a stranger's bookshelf. When Jess went quiet, it meant something had reached her in a place where words didn't get to first. She walked through the living room, touching the walls like she was reading them. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at the window above the sink for a long time. She opened a closet in the hallway and whispered, "Owen, this closet is bigger than my bathroom. That's not a high bar. I know. I'm emotional about storage." I followed her through the house carrying the brochure, watching her fall in love with crown molding and a clawfoot tub, and a reading nook under the stairs that she touched with both hands like she was afraid it might disappear. And something in me ached. Not about the house, about the way she looked inside it. Like she fit. Like the house had been waiting for exactly her. The realtor found us in the kitchen. Young guy. Enthusiastic. The kind of energy that comes from working on commission and believing in granite. "So what do you two think? It's a great property. Doesn't come up often in this neighborhood." And Jess, without hesitation, without blinking, without looking at me, said, "My boyfriend and I love it." The realtor smiled. Jess smiled. I stood there holding a brochure about countertop finishes and felt every organ in my body rearrange itself. I did not correct her. I should have. A normal person would have laughed and said, "Oh, we're not. She's just my friend." That is the socially appropriate response. That is what someone says when their best friend of 7 years spontaneously promotes them to a relationship status they have never discussed, negotiated, or acknowledged. I said, "The backyard's great." That was the moment I knew I was in serious trouble. Not because she had said it. People misspeak. People simplify. People don't want to explain complicated dynamics to enthusiastic realtors, but because I hadn't wanted to correct her. Because for 3 seconds, standing in that kitchen with October light on the hardwood and Jess Kavanaugh calling me her boyfriend to a stranger, I had felt something click into place like a lock I didn't know I'd been carrying. We left 20 minutes later. She didn't mention it. I didn't mention it. We drove to get coffee, and she talked about the reading nook and the Japanese maple and whether the water heater was original, and I sat in the passenger seat of her car and did not say, "You called me your boyfriend, and I liked it. And I have been in love with you since the sangria, and I am only telling you now inside my own head, because I am a coward with excellent posture." Instead, I said, "The closets were actually pretty good. I know. I'm going to dream about those closets. That's concerning. You're concerned about the wrong things, Owen." She was right. She was always right. That was part of the problem. That night I sat in my apartment and replayed the sentence. "My boyfriend and I love it." 7 words. She had said them the way you say something true, not performed, not corrected afterward, not laughed off. She'd said them like she'd already thought them, and the realtor had simply been the first audience. I told myself she was simplifying. I told myself it was easier than explaining. I told myself that Jess, who had once corrected a waiter who called us a lovely couple so fast she nearly knocked over a water glass, would not have let it stand unless it was a slip. But she hadn't corrected it, and neither had I. I did not sleep well. My stationary bike coat rack judged me from the other room. It was right too. Things after the open house were the same, and also not the same at all. She still came over. still used her key, still showed up with her terrible cat mug full of tea, kicked her shoes off at my door, and folded herself into the corner of my couch like she had signed a lease on it. But I had started noticing the edges, the parts of our friendship that had always been there, but that I had carefully, deliberately refused to examine. The way she always sat on the end of the couch closest to me, even when the other end was open. The way she texted me good morning every day, not every few days, not when she remembered. Every day, for years. The way she introduced me to people. Not "this is my friend Owen." It was always "this is Owen," and then she'd add something, "he's the one I told you about," or "he's the reason I survived Asheville," like she was giving me context that only made sense if you understood how much space I occupied in her life. I had filed all of this under friendship. It was a thick file. It was getting harder to close. Once she left her phone on my coffee table when she went to the bathroom, and a text from her mother lit up the screen. I didn't mean to read it. I read it. It said, "Have you told him yet, or are you still playing house every Friday?" Jess came back, glanced at the phone, silenced it, and said nothing. Her neck was flushed. She picked up the remote and turned the volume up 2 clicks. I cataloged that. I was building a catalog I had no right to build. My emotional bookkeeping around Jess Kavanaugh had become a full-time job I wasn't qualified for. 2 weeks after the open house, we were at her apartment. Tuesday night. Takeout containers on the coffee table, some cooking competition on the TV that neither of us was watching. Her cat mug was on the end table, half full and getting cold. The room smelled like sesame oil and the lavender candle she always lit when she was tired. Her phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, silenced it. "Who's that?" "Andrew." Andrew was a guy from her gym. He'd asked her out twice. She'd said no twice. He's persistent. He's fine. She pulled her knees up to her chest. He's just... Not what? She looked at me, held it 1 beat too long, then looked at the TV. Not right. That sentence sat in the air between us like smoke. I let it. She let it. Neither of us opened a window. The next Saturday, she brought me to another open house, different neighborhood, a renovated colonial with a porch swing. Jess walked through it quickly, efficiently, without the reverence she'd shown the bungalow. When the realtor asked if we had questions, she said, "We're just looking," and I noticed she said "we" without flinching, without correcting, like it was a word she had been using in her head for longer than I knew. Afterward, in the car, she said, "It's not right either." The house? The house. She was gripping the steering wheel with both hands, staring straight ahead. Her jaw was tight. She looked like a woman who was talking about real estate the way some people talk about everything except the thing they actually mean. "What would make it right?" I asked. "I don't know." She paused. The bungalow felt right. The kitchen with the window, the reading nook. Another pause. Longer, her voice dropped just a little. "It felt right because you were standing in it." I went very still. She heard it after she said it. I watched her hear it, a small flinch, like the sentence had slipped out before pride could catch it. Her fingers tightened once on the steering wheel. She looked like a woman who had just realized her own mouth had betrayed classified information. "That came out wrong," she said. "Did it?" She didn't answer. She turned on the radio. I let her. Some things need a drive home before they need a conversation. But I heard it. I carried it home like something fragile and set it down in my chest where it sat next to every morning text, every good night, every time she had chosen me over everyone and everything, and called it friendship, because neither of us was brave enough to call it what it was. 3 weeks later, she came over on a Friday night. Nothing unusual. She had her key, her mug, her shoes kicked off at my door. But something was different. She was quieter than usual. She sat on the couch and didn't reach for the remote. The cat mug sat on the end table, untouched. The apartment was dim. Just the kitchen light spilling into the living room. I could hear rain starting outside, tapping against the window like it was asking to come in. "Owen, yeah, I need to tell you something and I need you to not make it weird. That's a promising opening." She didn't laugh. She was holding her mug with both hands, staring into it like the cat in the top hat had answers. The rain outside picked up. The lavender candle flickered on the side table. At the open house. The first one. When I told the realtor you were my boyfriend. She paused. That wasn't a slip. The room changed. Or I changed in it. I had been thinking it. For a while. Not the word, the idea. What it would sound like to introduce you that way. What it would feel like. She looked up. Her eyes were bright, and her voice had dropped to something barely above the rain. And when he asked, it just came out, like it had been sitting behind my teeth for years, and that realtor was just the first person who asked the right question. I did not move. I did not breathe. My apartment smelled like rain and sesame oil and the lavender candle she had lit without asking, because she always lit it. Because this was her home too, and we had both been pretending it wasn't. "You don't have to say anything," I said. "We can sit here and watch TV and pretend this is a normal Friday, and I will never bring up the open house again." She set the mug down, carefully, the way she set things down when her hands weren't steady. The cat in the top hat stared up at the ceiling. "I don't want a normal Friday," she said. "I haven't wanted a normal Friday in 6 years." 6 years? Since the sangria. Since you walked me home, and I gave you my number, and you texted me the next morning, and I thought, oh no. He's going to be the one, and he doesn't even know it yet. She laughed once, but it came out wrong, wet and surprised by itself. Every guy I've dated since then, I compare them to you, not on purpose. Andrew isn't you. Mark wasn't you. That guy from the conference whose name I can't even remember was not you. And I'm tired, Owen. I am so tired of pretending the test isn't you. Something in my chest broke open. Not dramatically. Just enough that everything I had spent 6.5 years holding in place shifted, quietly, like a house settling into its foundation. I leaned forward. I reached for her hand, slowly, gently, giving her time to pull away. She didn't pull away. Her fingers were cold from the mug. I held them anyway. Every apartment I've ever lived in felt temporary, I said. And then, you got a key to this one, and it stopped. Not because of the apartment. Because you were in it. Because you left your mug on my counter and your shoes at my door, and the whole place smelled like your candle, and I thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like. And I have been an idiot about it for 6.5 years. She laughed. A real one this time. Wet and bright and aimed directly at my chest. 6.5, she said. We're both idiots. We're best friends. It's the same thing. She leaned in, and I leaned in, and the distance between her corner of the couch and mine was maybe 2 feet, and crossing it felt like something I should have done in a kitchen in Asheville or a parking lot after brunch. Or any one of 1,000 Friday nights when she was right here and I was right here, and neither of us moved. I kissed her. She kissed me back. It was gentle and warm and tasted like the tea she'd been drinking, and somewhere in the middle of it her phone buzzed on the coffee table, and we both ignored it. She pulled back, looked at the screen, started laughing. "What?" She turned the phone toward me. "A text from her mother. Did you finally tell him? Your father owes me $50. I stared at her. "Your parents had a bet?" "Apparently my mother bet I'd tell you before Christmas. My father bet never." "Your father bet never?" He said, and I quote, "Those two will die holding hands on adjacent rocking chairs without ever having a conversation about it. Your father is a savage. He's observant." We sat on the couch laughing about her parents' gambling habits while the rain hammered the windows and her cat mug grew cold on the table. And I held her hand and thought about how many Friday nights we had wasted, sitting exactly this close without closing the distance. 3 months later, she put an offer on the bungalow, the one with the reading nook and the Japanese maple and the kitchen with the window above the sink. The realtor remembered us. "The couple from October," he said, and Jess looked at me and I looked at her, and neither of us corrected him. This time, it was true. A year after that, I moved in. She gave me the second bedroom as an office, which I immediately turned into a graveyard for half-read paperbacks and a stationary bike I used as a coat rack. Some things don't change. She put her cat mug on the kitchen windowsill where the morning light caught the top hat at exactly the right angle. I put my coffee maker next to it. The kitchen smelled like dark roast in the mornings and lavender in the evenings, and it felt less like a house and more like the first place I had ever actually lived. Years later, when people asked how we got together, Jess always said, "I brought him to an open house and told the realtor he was my boyfriend before I told him." I always said, "She committed real estate fraud, and I fell for it." She would look at me with those freckles and that screwdriver in her hair and that cat mug somewhere nearby, always nearby, and say, "It wasn't fraud. It was a preview. It wasn't new. It had probably always been her." 7 years of Friday nights and morning texts and sangria and Gatorade runs and one perfect kitchen in one perfect house on one October afternoon when she finally said the thing we'd both been thinking. Not to me. To a realtor. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person does is say the truth to a stranger first. It felt late. Late in the best possible way. Nothing important had appeared overnight. It had simply stopped hiding. What would you have done if your best friend brought you to an open house and claimed you were her boyfriend, and you realized you didn't want to correct her? And have you ever looked at someone you've known for years and suddenly understood that what you called friendship was just love too patient to rush? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.